I stood in Gregory's office, watching the rain streak the windows, trying to process his words. "Pack your things, Eleanor. Your position has been eliminated," he said, his voice flat. The termination hit me like a physical blow, even though I had been expecting it for several days. It was exactly 1 week after Margaret Hadley's funeral, and here I was, being fired from the firm I had served for 5 years. I kept my expression perfectly neutral, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break down. "I understand," I replied, my voice steady. "We will need all client information transferred immediately," Gregory continued, sliding a thick folder across the desk, "especially any contacts you have been handling directly." I nodded, accepting the folder, of course. "And," Gregory added, leaning forward with urgency, "we will need the full details about the West Coast accounts. Margaret mentioned them before her passings." That was the moment I realized they had absolutely no idea. They did not know that Margaret had officially and legally transferred the entire $1.2 million portfolio to me, 3 days before her fatal heart attack. And they certainly did not know that I had already quietly resigned via certified mail that very morning. "I will gather everything," I promised, offering a pleasant smile. Gregory seemed disappointed by my calm reaction. He had expected tears, perhaps begging. Instead, he got a level of professionalism that clearly unsettled him. "You have until the end of the day to clear out your desk," he said, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. I walked out of his office carrying the folder, past the curious gazes of my colleagues, who had been speculating about the closed-door meeting. Some looked away quickly, feeling guilty because they already knew my fate. Others watched with barely concealed satisfaction. At my desk, I began methodically packing my personal items into a small cardboard box. Clara from accounting approached my desk, her voice lowered to a whisper. "Eleanor, is it true? Are they letting you go?" "Apparently my position has been eliminated," I replied, carefully wrapping a small crystal paperweight Margaret had given me for my 3-year anniversary with the company. "That is ridiculous," Clara whispered, looking around to ensure no one was listening. "You brought in that massive sustainable packaging account just last month. You have been carrying this department." I shrugged, maintaining my composure. Business decisions rarely make sense from the outside, Clara. 6 months earlier, Margaret had called me into her office late one evening. "Eleanor," she had said as I entered, "close the door." I did as she asked, settling into the leather chair across from her desk. Margaret pushed aside her computer monitor and slid a glass of water toward me. "I have been watching you outperform everyone in this department for 3 years," she said, her direct gaze as intense as ever. "Yet they keep passing you over for promotions in favor of men who cannot even explain the basic metrics of our contracts." I sipped the water silently. I had been at the firm for 5 years, and despite bringing in more new business than anyone else, I remained stuck while less qualified men climbed upward. Margaret had hit the glass ceiling so hard she had stopped trying to break through it. Instead, she had decided to build her own ladder. "I am dying," Margaret stated flatly. "Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less if the treatments do not hold." I nearly choked on my water, setting the glass down with a shaking hand. "Margaret, I am so sorry." "Do not be sorry, Eleanor. Be smart," she replied. "When I am gone, the executives will carve up my client relationships like vultures. Unless we do something about it." She then outlined her plan. Over the next 6 months, she would gradually introduce me to her most valuable clients, the West Coast portfolio, which generated $1.2 million in annual contracts. But officially, these meetings would appear as routine support work. "They are watching the big, flashy accounts," Margaret explained. "They do not pay attention to the scattered, smaller ones that collectively matter the most. For months, we worked together in plain sight. I met with creative entrepreneurs, boutique manufacturers, and innovative startups all along the coast. Margaret introduced me as her right hand, the person who had handled the details. The clients quickly grew to trust on my judgment. Gregory began requesting unusual reports, asking pointed questions about my client meetings. I provided just enough surface-level information to satisfy him without revealing our true activities. 2 weeks before her death, Margaret finalized the paperwork, a legal transfer of client relationships properly notarized and documented. She even paid the transfer fees from her personal account to keep it off the company ledger. "They will come for you after I am gone, Eleanor," she warned me. "Be ready." And now the day had come. I was ready. As I placed the last of my personal belongings into the cardboard box, Clara touched my arm gently. "What will you do now, Eleanor? Do you have another job lined up?" I smiled, feeling a quiet confidence settle over me. "I have some ideas, Clara. Do not worry about me." I picked up the box and walked toward the elevators, leaving the whispering office behind. I was 32 years old, single, and possessed a level of determination that often made my colleagues uncomfortable. Growing up in a small coastal town had taught me the value of patience and the necessity of resourcefulness. 4 years at a state college on academic scholarships had taught me perseverance, and 5 years at this prestigious firm had taught me that playing by the rules was a luxury reserved for those who made them. Margaret had recognized that quality in me from the very beginning. While other executives saw a quiet worker who simply followed directions, Margaret saw the calculations running behind my eyes. The first time she called me into her office, I thought I was going to be reprimanded for some minor infraction. Instead, she asked me what I thought about a new marketing proposal the executive team had celebrated that morning. "It is fundamentally flawed," I had said. Surprised by my own honesty, instead of being offended, Margaret had smiled. "Explain." I spent the next 10 minutes outlining 3 critical weaknesses in the proposal that everyone else had missed, focusing on the unrealistic conversion rates and the lack of risk mitigation. When I finished, Margaret nodded once. "Tomorrow, you will join me in the client meeting, Eleanor. Say exactly what you just told me. No hesitation. The client deserves honest expertise, and that is what they hire us to do." The next day, the client thanked us for our candor and signed a contract that was even larger than originally proposed, specifically requesting that I be involved in the implementation. That was the beginning of our working relationship. Margaret became my mentor, though neither of us ever used that formal term. She pushed me, challenged me, and trusted me with increasingly important responsibilities. When I generated a 30% increase in my portfolio's revenue, while others struggled to maintain their numbers, I expected recognition. Instead, Gregory was promoted to team lead despite his mediocre performance. "You have to play their game," Eleanor, a female colleague in marketing, had advised me over lunch. "Laugh at their jokes, join them for happy hours, make them feel comfortable around you." I tried that approach briefly. It made absolutely no difference. When the next promotion went to Douglas, Margaret called me into her office again. "Stop trying to be one of them, Eleanor," she had said, her voice gentle but firm. "They have already decided who you are, and to them, you are a threat." I laughed, shaking my head. "I am not threatening anyone, Margaret. I just do my job." "You outperform them consistently without playing their political games," she said. "That is the most threatening thing you could possibly do in a place like this." She was right, of course. My results spoke for themselves, but numbers could not overcome the invisible barriers of favoritism. I watched as male colleagues took credit for my ideas in meetings, interrupting me only to restate exactly what I had just said to nods of approval from the board. I endured clients addressing their questions to junior male colleagues instead of me, despite my obvious seniority and technical knowledge. Through it all, I kept breaking records, bringing in new business, and making the company money that they happily accepted while denying me any path for advancement. Margaret had understood my frustration completely. As the only female executive, she had fought the exact same battles for decades. She had reached a level of success that demanded professional respect, but she was never truly accepted into the inner circle. I had watched her navigate board meetings where her suggestions were ignored, only to be celebrated when a male colleague repeated them 20 minutes later. I saw her excluded from the weekend golf outings where the real executive decisions were made. "Do not make my mistakes, Eleanor," she had told me once. I waited for them to recognize my value, believing that hard work was enough. Do not wait for permission to succeed. But I was not sure what the alternative was until the day she sat me down and shared her terminal diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer with 6 months to live at best. She had kept it a secret from everyone at the firm, choosing to share it only with her doctor and now me. Why are you telling me this, Margaret? I asked, still processing the shock of the news. Because I need your help, she replied. And because you deserve far better than what they will give you when I am gone. Her plan was both simple and incredibly daring. The West Coast portfolio consisted of 23 clients she had personally cultivated over 15 years. They were small to mid-sized businesses that collectively generated $1.2 million in annual revenue. They were not the flashiest accounts that executives bragged about at quarterly meetings, but they were steady, loyal, and valued personal attention. These relationships are built entirely on trust, Margaret explained. When I am gone, the company will distribute these accounts among the team leads who have no relationship with the clients. Within a year, half of them will walk away. What do you want me to do? I asked. I want you to inherit them, Eleanor. I want you to take them with you when you leave. The next day began our careful choreography. Margaret started introducing me to the West Coast clients as her trusted associate. We traveled to meetings together along the coast, with Margaret teaching me each client's history, their specific preferences, and their long-term business goals. To the rest of the company, it looked like Margaret was finally delegating some of her heavy workload due to the health issues she had vaguely mentioned. In reality, she was transferring her most valuable asset to me. Client trust. Sarah, the founder of a boutique tech startup, immediately liked me. Margaret never brings anyone to our strategic planning meetings, Sarah had noted during our first lunch. You must be someone special, Eleanor. Eleanor sees the details that others miss, Margaret had said simply. Thomas, whose sustainable packaging company was growing rapidly, was even more direct. Are you taking over for Margaret? Just supporting her for now, I replied, following our agreed script. Good, Thomas said. I hate repeating myself to new people who do not understand our production cycle. By the third month of our partnership, I knew every client's business almost as well as Margaret did. By the fourth month, some of the founders were calling my personal line directly instead of hers. By the fifth month, we were ready for the legal phase. Everything must be documented properly, Margaret insisted. They will fight you with everything they have once they realize what we have done. We met with her personal attorney, Evelyn Ross, rather than using the company's legal department. Papers were drawn up, signatures notarized, and explicit client permissions were obtained. One by one, the accounts were officially transferred to me as their primary contact. The company remained entirely oblivious when Margaret began coming to the office less frequently. Citing medical appointments, no one questioned my increased travel. They assumed I was merely covering for her temporarily. Only Gregory seemed suspicious, demanding reports. The executive team needs complete visibility into these accounts. Eleanor Gregory insisted during one of our weekly check-ins. I provided surface-level information, nothing that revealed the depth of my new relationships with these clients. Margaret had warned me about him specifically. Gregory has been trying to get his hands on my portfolio for years, she had told me. He knows those clients represent security and stability. 2 weeks before her death, Margaret invited me to her home for the first time. I was surprised by its modest size and practical furnishings. I live within my means, she explained, noticing my expression. Financial independence gives you options, Eleanor. Never forget that. On her dining table lay the final documents. The official transfer of the client relationships to me personally, not to the firm. All were properly executed. Is this even legal, Margaret? I asked, stunned by the comprehensiveness of the paperwork. Completely, she replied. I am transferring relationships I built individually, not company property. The distinction matters in court. She slid the papers toward me. Keep these somewhere safe, away from both your home and the office. They will come for you after I am gone, Margaret warned me, her voice weaker than I had ever heard it. Be ready. 3 days later, her assistant called me in tears. Margaret had suffered a sudden heart attack in her sleep. She was gone. The company's response was swift and predictable. A tasteful email announcement was sent out. A donation to cancer research was made in her name, and a team meeting was called where the chief executive officer, Mr. Harrison, spoke briefly about her contributions before quickly pivoting to the transition of her accounts. At her funeral, I stood apart from my colleagues, watching their performance of grief. Gregory approached me afterward, his expression sympathetic while his eyes remained cold. "Such a loss," he said. "We will need to discuss transitioning Margaret's accounts to my team soon." I nodded, keeping my eyes downcast. "Whatever the company needs, Gregory." That evening, I received a text from Mr. Harrison demanding the complete client list. The next morning, I provided the incomplete version, omitting all 23 West Coast clients. "Where are the West Coast accounts?" Mr. Harrison demanded, frowning at the spreadsheet during our morning meeting. "I am not familiar with those," I lied smoothly, my expression completely neutral. "Margaret handled them personally on her own servers." Mr. Harrison's face tightened. "Search her files immediately. We need those clients." For the next week, I performed a thorough, highly visible search of Margaret's office. I used my lunch breaks and evenings to meet with my new clients, reassuring them during the transition. Every single one expressed sadness at Margaret's passing, and most added how relieved they were to still have me. Each day, Gregory grew more agitated. The quarterly forecast looked increasingly concerning without those accounts. The executive team held closed-door meetings that ended with grim expressions. Then came my termination meeting. As I carried my box of belongings toward the elevator, Gregory approached me one last time. "Before you go," he said, his voice low and urgent, "where are those West Coast files? This is business, Eleanor. The company needs those accounts." I set down my box and looked him directly in the eyes. "I have no knowledge of those files. Don't play games, Eleanor. Those clients represent over $1 million in annual revenue. They belong to this company." I picked up my box again. "Actually, they belong to whoever they choose to work with, Gregory." His face reddened. "Is that a threat?" "Just a fact," I replied, stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed on his angry face, I allowed myself a small smile. My new journey was finally beginning. The morning after my termination, I awoke before my alarm. For the first time in 5 years, I was technically unemployed. In reality, I was freer than I had been in my entire professional life. I made coffee and carried it to my small balcony, watching the city wake up. My phone buzzed with concerns from the few working beside. Clara had sent 3 texts already, each more worried than the last. I answered her briefly, telling her I was fine. The truth was, I had been preparing for this day for months. The night before Margaret's funeral, I had opened a business checking account. 2 days later, I had filed the paperwork for my new limited liability company. 3 weeks after that, I had secured a small office space in a converted warehouse by the waterfront, within walking distance of several of my new clients. All of this had been done quietly, methodically, following Margaret's detailed instructions. "Don't rush," she had advised. "Let them show their true colors first." My phone rang, displaying an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Eleanor Vance speaking." "Miss Vance, this is David Foster, Chief Legal Counsel for the firm." "Yes, well, there seems to be some confusion regarding certain client relationships formerly managed by Margaret Hadley. The company would like to schedule a meeting to clarify these matters." "There is no confusion on my part, Mr. Foster," I replied, sipping my coffee. "Perhaps I am not being clear, Eleanor. These client relationships belong to the company. Any attempt to redirect them would constitute theft of proprietary business assets. We will pursue legal remedies." "I have no intention of discussing this further without my attorney present," I said calmly. "Any additional communication should be directed to Evelyn Ross." 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Mr. Harrison himself this time. I let it go to voicemail. His message was curt. "Eleanor, this is a serious matter. Call me immediately." Instead, I sent a text to Thomas. "Still on for our 10 a.m. meeting?" His reply came seconds later. "Absolutely. Bringing the new product samples." I showered and dressed with care, choosing a charcoal pantsuit that Margaret had once admired. "Power is not about blending in, Eleanor," she had told me. "It is about standing your ground." Thomas arrived precisely at 10, carrying a box of prototype packaging. "Nice place," he said, glancing around. "A bit empty, though, for now," I replied. "I am starting small." Thomas set his samples on the conference table. "I got a call from your old company this morning. Some guy named Gregory, to schedule an urgent meeting about our account," Thomas said. "He claimed there had been a restructuring and that he would be taking over personally." "And what did you say to that?" I told him we are happy with our current arrangement with you. He said there must be some misunderstanding, that all client contracts are legally with the company, not individual representatives. I told him to check his paperwork again. He got very quiet and said he would have to get back to me. I smiled, feeling a wave of validation. By noon, I had confirmed meetings with 5 more clients for the following day. By 3, I had received emails from 7 others, all reporting similar calls from either Gregory or another executive at my former company. At 4, Evelyn Ross called. "They are threatening legal action," she said without preamble. "They are claiming breach of contract, client poaching, and misappropriation of trade secrets." "Exactly as Margaret predicted," I replied. "Yes, and exactly as we prepared for," Evelyn said. "I have reviewed all the documentation again. The client transfers were executed properly with full disclosure and consent. You never signed a non-compete clause, and there are no trade secrets involved since all client information was either publicly available or provided directly by the clients themselves. We are on solid ground. What is our next move?" "Let them bluster," Evelyn advised. "I have requested all relevant documentation from their legal team. That will buy us some time while they scramble to find paperwork that does not exist." After hanging up, I watched the boats navigate the harbor. Margaret had loved this view when we had looked at the space together. My phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. "Eleanor, it is Douglas. Can we talk? Not company business. Just talk." I suggested we meet at the Copper Kettle Cafe at 7 p.m. I arrived early. Douglas walked in at exactly 7, looking tired. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, sliding into the chair. "Things are crazy at the office. The executive team is in complete meltdown mode, and that concerns me." "Why?" "They are saying you stole clients," Douglas whispered. "They are building a case against you. They have pulled 5 years of emails looking for evidence. They are also freezing Margaret's final compensation package, claiming evidence of misconduct to use as leverage against her family." A surge of anger went through me. Margaret's sister Rosemary had 2 children in college. That money was meant for them. "Thank you for telling me, Douglas," I said. He stood to leave. "I never saw this meeting happening. Neither did you." I called Evelyn immediately. "They are freezing Margaret's final compensation," I said to Evelyn. "I just heard from her sister's attorney," Evelyn confirmed. "They are claiming breach of fiduciary duty. It will not hold up in court, but it could tie up the funds for months." That was exactly what they wanted. They were punishing Margaret's family to get to me. The knowledge sat like a cold stone in my stomach. By the end of the week, the company's tactics grew even more desperate. Sarah called me on Friday afternoon, her voice tight with stress. "Eleanor, we have a situation. Your former employer is telling our lead investors that our contract transfer was illegitimate. They are claiming it could invalidate our entire financing round." "That is completely false," I said, my grip on the phone tightening. "I know, but our investors are spooked. They are talking about pulling out. And the firm offered to cut our service fees by 40% if we come back. That is hard to ignore in our position. This was the first crack in the wall." I called Evelyn, who reminded me of Margaret's contingency plan. The next morning, I invited Sarah to my office. Evelyn was already there, along with Winston Hayes, Margaret's former mentor and a legendary startup investor. "Miss Deswani," Winston said, extending his hand to Sarah. "Margaret spoke very highly of your innovation. I am prepared to step in as a co-investor to resolve your funding concerns and accelerate your growth timeline. My firm will guarantee the round." This announcement immediately put Sarah's investors at ease. By the time Sarah left, the crisis had transformed into a major opportunity. Over the next 2 weeks, similar scenarios played out. When the firm targeted my clients with aggressive discounts or investor pressure, I found ways to strengthen those relationships. For Thomas's sustainable packaging business, I connected him with 3 new retail partners. For another client, I arranged a feature in a major lifestyle publication. The personal attention we provided was something the corporate machine could never replicate. They could offer discounts, but they could not offer growth. 3 weeks after my termination, I received an email from Mr. Harrison offering me a full partnership position if I returned the West Coast accounts. I forwarded it to Evelyn with a single question: "Time?" Her response was brief. Almost the next morning, I arrived at Evelyn's office carrying a briefcase. She was waiting with Beatrice, an investigator from the Financial Crimes Unit. I opened my briefcase, revealing the files Margaret had compiled over 15 years. It was evidence of systematic financial fraud that went far beyond creative accounting. Artificially inflated client contracts, fake service logs, and hidden expenses designed to boost executive bonuses while misleading shareholders. Margaret had documented every transaction, listing dates, accounts, and names. "Why didn't she report this sooner?" Beatrice asked. "She tried internally," I explained. "Her department's budget was cut by 30%, and 3 staff members were let go. She realized she needed to document everything first." "The client transfers," Evelyn added, "were to protect these businesses from the fallout." As Beatrice left with the evidence, my phone buzzed. It was a call from Detective Bennett. The investigation was officially launched. By that afternoon, the news broke. Security fraud allegations against our former firm hit the headlines. The stock plunged 20% and trading was halted. By 2 p.m., executives were being escorted out of the building. Gregory and 3 other managers were placed on administrative leave. Due to the public scrutiny, Margaret's final compensation package was released to her sister Rosemary. No one wanted to be seen punishing the family of a deceased whistleblower. A few days later, Rosemary visited my office and handed me a letter written in Margaret's distinctive handwriting. "Eleanor," the letter read, "if you are reading this, then everything has proceeded according to plan. I chose you not just for your competence, but because 3 years ago you were the only person who noticed something was wrong with my health. You asked if I was okay when everyone else saw only a corporate resource, build something better than the environment we escaped. In the safety deposit box, you will find a key to a storage unit containing further documentation of the board's corruption. Use it wisely. 6 months after my termination, my new firm relocated to a larger office in the same building. We had grown to 5 full-time employees, including Clara, who had resigned the day the investigation became public. Margaret's framed photograph hung in our reception area. Beneath it was a plaque. "Success is not climbing their ladder. It is building your own." That afternoon, Douglas visited, looking humbled. He had turned down a position in the restructured firm. "I want to start over," Douglas said. "Do better. I realize now that playing their political games only makes you part of the problem. I want to build a career based on actual results and integrity." I studied him for a moment, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "We have an opening for a junior associate," I said. "If you are willing to learn the right way to do business, the door is open." He smiled, accepting the offer with a firm handshake, and for the first time, I felt the circle was complete. Margaret's legacy was secure, and our future was bright.